Hello students, welcome to Science and Tech series with Dr. Vivek Rana. So first of all, on behalf of CCS Academy team, I would like to wish all the best to all HCS and UPSC aspirants who are appearing in highly competitive prelims exam scheduled this week. I hope you clear this exam with flying colors. And also HPAS 2023 notification is out. So there are 11 seats this time. Make sure you fill the form and just increase your probability of cracking this prestigious examination. So coming back to science and tech theme, which will be decoding this week, is you could say the triple test for altruistic surrogacy. So we can say the topic falls in domain of biotechnology in science and tech, and we have seen that in prelims as well as mains, the biotech section holds key because this is one of the sections which is formally mentioned in plus 2 biology textbooks NCRT, and so at times the little bit of you could say difficult questions are framed from this section, even though we have discussed the surrogacy law in our class lectures, but there is a minor addition which can be covered from this given video. So without wasting any time, let's just decode what does altruism mean and what are these triple you could say tests evolved by Karnataka High Court in context of surrogacy. First and foremost, the basic factual part which you need to understand is what IVF technique is, what it is stand for. Like we know, it's a in vitro fertilization technique which is commonly referred as the test tube baby. And the world's first test tube baby was Louis Brown, which was successfully, you could say, evolved by Robert Edwards. And in India, the Durga was the first test tube baby, and they have done well in their lives altogether. So first of all, we have to now understand that India's journey in surrogacy has been a little tricky one, and we can say that it has been a bit regressive in regulation. First, we banned foreigners for surrogacy, then commercial surrogacy is currently banned, and now we have moved to, you could say, more conservative form, altruistic surrogacy. Now in commercial surrogacy, the surrogate mother is generally paid a handsome compensation in lieu of, you could say, undergoing, you could say, pregnancy. For 9 months she sacrifices her important part of her life to bear a healthy child for probable infertile couples. Now in altruistic surrogacy, if we go to the genesis of the term, altruism means to do selfless service. In altruism, you could say you want to help someone without expecting any compensation or reward in return. So more likely in practical terms, it is going to be some close relative who is going to act as surrogate mother for the infertile couple. So there is nothing too controversial in the project because we can see the rights of the child are safeguarded in altruistic surrogacy. At times you could say in commercial surrogacy, we have seen child being abandoned, or there have been some issues regarding you could say genetic disorders being inherited and the prospective parent backing out at last moment. So to avoid such unnecessary controversies, Indian legal system, you could say, has decided to go ahead with the altruistic surrogacy, and there are sufficient safeguards for some minor hiccups which may arise while dealing with such cases. So altruism, if you go into the animal kingdom part, is exhibited by the worker class of honeybees. We have seen in the bee colony there are three castes. There is a queen which represents fertile female. There are drones which are, you could say, fertile males, and the worker which are, you could say, the infertile females. So we say that workers show altruism at the highest sense because they sacrifice their reproductive rights for the overall growth of the colony. So altruistic surrogacy is not the brainchild of India. A lot of countries in Europe are already experimenting with the model, and there have been, you could say, plethora of success stories right from Canada, Greece, and other similar, you could say, European countries. Now, we have seen in 2021 a landmark legislation finally being passed to regulate surrogacy in India, even though surrogacy was a legal entity, but we didn't have a proper formulated law to regulate the guidance. And we have seen some controversies emerging time and again. So, a need for a proper passed law was the R, and India successfully implemented it in 2021, which defines that what age group can opt for surrogacy. Currently, it's quite conservative. Only married couple can opt for surrogacy in India, and we have seen the age brackets being defined. In females it is from 23 to 50 years. For males it is from 26 to, you could say, 55 years. And only a girl who is going to be at surrogate should also be married and should have one biological child, and her age group is preferred in 25 to 30 years. So you can say there are some lot of technical nitty-gritties involved when we have defined the first formal law, and there is no harm that we can amend as the time requires. Now there was a peculiar case where an individual, a couple, in which male was 57 years and the female was 43 years. They had lost their child in an accident who was 23-year old. Now they had a urge that they should have their own biological child through means of surrogacy. But the current law 2021 surrogacy, you can say, debars them, because the male partner has crossed the, you could say, the legal age, and the female was had gone to a hysterectomy, so she couldn't bear child of her own. So in that case, they challenged this current law, and Haryana High Court finally evolved a mechanism for such couples, so that in future also, if someone wants to go for this altruistic surrogacy, they should not be debarred just because they have crossed the minor age bracket by, you could say, few years. So, as per Haryana High Court, the triple, you could say, the test for altruistic surrogacy will revolve around three parameters. The first is the genetic test, the second is going to be a physical, and the third is going to be the economic test. So, as the name suggests, they are not too complicated to understand. The first and foremost controversies which we have seen in the commercial surrogacy cases globally as well as in India are the unhealthy child being born. For example, we have seen that Australian couple disown a child who was suffering from Down syndrome. Down syndrome is a genetic disorder where individual has an extra chromosome number 21, which we call trisomy, and the child generally suffers from mental retardation. So to avoid such similar controversies, because if someone is spending economic sum to bear, he's probably prepared to want a healthy child to be born. So genetic test would scrutinize the similar prospective, you could say, sperm donor, if there is some inherited disorder or some genetic trait which might be detrimental in long run. So we can just rule out that, so that these cases at the end stage, because surrogate mother is not in position to raise that child once the prospective parents opt out. So genetic test will screen, you could say, the cell stage for various genetic disorders, because there are plenty of techniques currently available through which we can easily you could say, genetic history, make out whether there is a tendency of that genetic disease to be expressed or not. So it's a welcome move that genetic test has been made mandatory, so that such cases can be evolved, because we are living in times of eugenics and euthanics, where easily the inherited disorders, especially genetic ones, should be limited and should not be promoted, should be transferred to the next generation. The physical test deals with the cases that the person should be reasonably fit and healthy, should not be suffering from some deep, you could say, limiting condition which can compromise, you could say, healthy upbringing of the child. So in current case, you can see that if individual has sufficient time and if is in physically and mentally fit condition, he could give a healthy parenthood, and there is no harm in giving that person a chance to raise a child. But we have seen in previous cases a 70-year-old person who was suffering from diabetes and undergoing such procedure, he may not be in position to give the best of the, you could say, the capabilities to which are required to be a parent. So in those cases, there is no harm that we can rule out surrogacy when we see that person may not live up to at least the basic parental age. The third criteria is economic one. So even though the surrogacy is opted mainly by well-off and middle-class, you could say, families, but they want that they should have a stable bank account, so that in initial stage, even if some tragedy happens, the child should have a secure future. So there is no harm in prescribing some basic economic criteria, so that a child who is being born through this procedure gets a reasonable fair chance to develop as a full capable citizen and realize his full potential as an individual. So if the all three criterias are met satisfactorily, so in those cases, on you could say compassionate grounds, this surrogacy can be opted. And you could say the minimum you have to just pay a person who is acting reasonable medical expenses, even though, because India has clearly spelled out the guidelines that we are not going to encourage or promote commercial surrogacy in any form. Only altruistic with minor, you could say, alterations is acceptable for Indian, you could say, medical fraternity as well as society and government at the same page. Eventually, in long run, we may try to commercialize or open doors for foreigners as well. So I hope the basic word altruism is now clear, that what exactly is altruism when we are doing something for someone without expecting anything in return. You could say the highest form of selfless service, and the triple tests are nothing but genetic, physical, and economic tests. So I hope I have made some basic terms clear to you through the medium of this lecture. If you have any specific query related to the issue, you can ask them in comment section. We will try to take up the genuine ones on priority. So I thank you very much for this session. I wish, once again, I would like to wish all the best to all aspirants who are appearing in UPSC as well as HCS prelims exam. Do well. Have a nice day.